When Eli's car breaks down on a quiet country road, a kind stranger named Wade offers unexpected help. What begins as a simple act of kindness turns into a meaningful connection, built on honesty, quiet moments, and two people learning to trust again. Sometimes, getting lost is how you find something real. But instead, I kept going. The highway stretched like a scar across the open land. No end in sight, no signal on my phone, and nowhere specific to be. It wasn't supposed to be a dramatic escape, more like a quiet surrender. One moment, I was sitting on the couch, staring at a picture frame with no photo inside. The next, I was packing a bag I didn't need and driving west with no map. Sometimes heartbreak doesn't scream. It just leaves the door open. The breakup hadn't been messy, but it had been hollow, like a room stripped of all furniture. No yelling, no slammed doors. Just two people who stopped looking at each other like they used to. No one cheated. No one begged. And yet, something vital had collapsed in the middle, and I kept stepping over it, pretending it wasn't there. Until I couldn't. So I left. No destination. Just a road. It had been a couple of hours since I passed anything that resembled a town. The stars were nowhere to be seen. Clouds hung low, heavy with silence. My thoughts swelled in the quiet like static. Thoughts I didn't want to think. That's when it happened. A jolt. A sharp tug to the right. Then the unmistakable hiss. I gripped the wheel, heart thudding. The car dipped and wobbled. I coasted to the shoulder, or what I hoped was the shoulder, and threw it in park. When I opened the door, the wind hit me like a warning. Cold. Empty. My sneakers crunched on gravel. I crouched beside the front passenger side and didn't need a flashlight to know what I'd find. The tire was gone. Not just flat, shredded. No signal. No spare. No backup plan. I stood up, ran a hand through my hair, and laughed bitterly into the dark. Of course this would happen. The road behind me looked endless and unforgiving. The road ahead wasn't better. I checked the trunk, hoping for a miracle. There was a half-empty bottle of water, a blanket, and a jack I didn't know how to use. No tire. No flares. I sat on the edge of the trunk and stared into nothing. Minutes passed. Maybe 10. Maybe more. I kicked a rock just to hear a sound. The wind moved through tall grass like a warning. I should have been scared, but mostly I just felt small. Tired. Tired in that deep, bone-heavy way that follows you home from bad conversations and half-meant promises. Then headlights. A single pair, distant but approaching. For a split second, relief bloomed in my chest, but it withered just as fast. Horror movies start like this. One car, one stranger, one bad decision. I stood, hands flexing, ready to run or wave. I hadn't decided which. The truck slowed. Gravel crunched. It stopped just behind mine, engine idling. My breath caught. The driver's door opened. Boots hit the ground. Then a man stepped into view. He didn't say anything at first, just stood there, letting the silence speak. Then he took a few steps forward and said, "Calm as a lake in winter. You all right?" His voice didn't sound rehearsed. It wasn't overly friendly, but also didn't carry menace. Just calm. I hesitated, then nodded. "Flat tire," I said. No signal. No clue what I'm doing. He nodded once like that all tracked. Figures. These roads chew up tires like nothing. Another pause. I expected him to offer help, or ask for money, or, worst case, tell me to get in his truck. But he didn't. He just stood there, assessing, not judging. "I'm Wade," he said. "Live about 4 miles that way." He thumbed behind him. I didn't offer my name. Not yet. Just said, "I'm not from around here." He cracked a small smile. "No kidding. You're wearing sneakers." That got a laugh out of me, unexpected. "That obvious?" He knelt to examine the tire. "You're not going anywhere tonight," he said matter-of-factly. "You try to drive on that, you'll wreck your axle." I figured. He stood, dusting his hands. "I can call someone in the morning." Or, he trailed off like it wasn't a sales pitch. Or, "I can give you a place to crash for the night. Got coffee, too." I blinked. "You're offering to help?" Just like that. He tilted his head. "Wouldn't be much of a neighbor if I left you out here." I hesitated. Every caution light in my brain blinked red. But none of those lights had led me anywhere good lately. And I was cold. And alone. And something about the way he stood, open stance, no pressure in his posture, Made me feel like I could say no and he'd be fine with it. Okay, I said. Lead the way. He turned and walked back to his truck. I followed. The drive was short and quiet. His taillights were the only thing I could focus on. I didn't know if I was doing something smart or stupid, but it didn't feel dangerous. Just strange. His property sat off a narrow dirt road marked only by a leaning mailbox. The house came into view like something out of a memory. Low roof, wraparound porch, a few steps that creaked as we climbed. He opened the door and waved me inside. No dramatics. No pressure. Inside, it was warm. Simple. Not staged. He moved like someone who didn't need to impress. I stood there awkwardly until he said, "You hungry?" I was. But I said, "You don't have to." "I didn't ask that," he replied, already pulling things from the fridge. 10 minutes later, we sat at the table. I still hadn't said much. He hadn't asked for it. "You from a city?" he asked finally. "Yeah." "Running from something?" I looked up. He wasn't prying. He said it like he'd run once too. Kind of, I admitted. Wade nodded like that made sense. Then he poured 2 mugs of coffee and sat across from me. We didn't talk much after that. Just ate in silence. But it wasn't awkward. It was quiet in a good way. Like the kind of quiet that knows how to listen. When I finished the last bite of grilled cheese, I looked at him. "Thanks for stopping." He sipped his coffee and said, "Didn't have to, but I'm glad I did." That night, I slept in a room with a quilt on the bed and a window that looked out into pure black. I kicked the door gently until it shut like he'd told me. The silence wasn't empty. It was soft. For the first time in weeks, I didn't wake up at 3 a.m. wondering what I'd done wrong. The next morning didn't feel like it belonged to real life. It was too still. No phone buzzing. No footsteps above or beside me. Just soft light through the window and the distant murmur of someone making breakfast. Wait, I stretched out the tightness in my back, not quite ready to leave the quiet behind. When I stepped into the kitchen, he was already there, flipping something in a skillet. "Morning," he said, without turning around. "Morning. Coffee's fresh. Mugs are above the sink." I poured a cup and took a sip. It was strong enough to make my eyes water, but I didn't complain. It tasted like calm, rough around the edges, but honest. I needed that. "You like your eggs scrambled or over?" "Scrambled's fine." He nodded. Neither of us rushed. He didn't act like a man doing someone a favor. Just someone who didn't mind making breakfast for a stranger who looked like he hadn't slept well in months. We ate in quiet. The chairs creaked like they remembered us from last night. Wade didn't ask questions, and I was grateful. That silence gave me space. Not the lonely kind. The kind that lets you breathe. After we finished, he stood, rinsed his plate, and passed me mine to dry. We worked in a quiet rhythm, like we'd done it 100 times. Nothing forced. No awkward apologies for existing. Just presence. When the last dish was stacked, he leaned against the counter. "You got plans today?" "Not really," I said, stretching. "I was just going to drive." He nodded. "Tire shop doesn't open till 10. You're welcome to hang out. Or do nothing at all." We moved to the porch. The morning was slow and soft. The sky still pale, the wind moving through dry grass like it was brushing secrets off its shoulders. He sat on the top step, one arm resting on his knee. I followed, cradling my second mug. "Been a while since someone else sat here," he said. "That a good thing?" "Most days." We sat in a silence that didn't itch. The kind that lets things settle. I didn't feel watched. I didn't feel judged. I just was. He stood up after a while and said he had fence work out back. I offered to help before I could talk myself out of it. "You don't have to." "I know." He nodded. That was enough. He handed me gloves and pointed to where the wood slats needed resetting. I held them steady while he hammered. He showed me how to brace my arm, how to check the level. We worked until our shirts stuck to our backs, the sun finally showing its full weight. But it didn't feel like a burden. "You ever do this kind of work before?" he asked. "Nope." "You're not terrible at it." "Wow," I said. "High praise." He smiled without looking up. "Don't let it go to your head." By noon, we had finished 2 panels and replaced 3 posts. He handed me a bottle of water. We leaned against the fence we'd fixed, staring out at the pasture. "Used to do this with my dad," he said after a long pause. He'd cursed the nails, said they were never straight. Probably bent more of them that he drove in. "You close with him?" He took a breath. "Used to be." That was all he said. I didn't push. I'd started to learn that quiet wasn't absence. It was trust. The things you didn't say meant something, too. Back at the house, we ate sandwiches on the porch. I noticed he'd sliced his diagonally and mine straight across. I didn't say anything, but the difference felt oddly intimate. Like he was the kind of man who noticed small things and didn't ask you to notice them back. Shop called, he said. Tires delayed. Won't be here till tomorrow. I blinked. You serious? He nodded. You're welcome to crash again. You sure? Not the type to invite someone twice if I don't mean it. That night, dinner was chilly. Simple. Hot. Satisfying in the way food only is when you've earned it. We didn't talk much while we ate, and yet nothing felt unsaid. When we cleaned up, I turned to him. Do you ever get tired of the quiet? He leaned against the sink. Sometimes, but not like you think. I waited. Silence isn't what bothers me. It's the noise in your own head when nothing's left to drown it out. I nodded. Yeah, that. Later, on the porch, we watched stars bleed into the sky. The darkness out here was deep, whole, not carved up by headlights or neon. You could hear the hum of everything alive. The creak of old wood, the wind in the rafters, a dog barking miles away. Eli, he said. That was the first time he used my name. Yeah. You seem steadier today. Maybe I am. We didn't talk about yesterday, or why I'd driven off the grid, or who I'd left behind. We didn't talk about old relationships, or cities that smothered, or people who left bruises without raising a hand. But something passed between us then. Not flirtation, not longing, just a recognition that we were both a little worn down, that maybe we didn't need to be fixed, just understood. I stood to head to the guest room. Night, I said. He looked at me like he wanted to say something, but just nodded. Night. I fell asleep to the sound of wind pressing gently against the window. For the first time in months, I didn't dream about leaving. The morning started like the last one. Quiet. The scent of coffee already in the air. Sunlight leaking in through the window. I sat on the edge of the bed for a moment, just listening to the stillness. No notifications. No arguments muffled through the wall. No obligations waiting behind some inbox. Just the creak of floorboards and the sound of someone making breakfast. Wade, when I stepped into the kitchen, he didn't look up. Just said, "You're up." Barely. He slid a plate onto the table. Eggs, toast, and something that looked like leftover potatoes reheated in a skillet. I sat down without asking. It was simple. It was real. And maybe that was why it felt so grounding. He poured coffee for us both. The silence between us wasn't heavy. It had settled into something familiar now. Neither of us felt the need to fill it. Halfway through breakfast, he cleared his throat like he was prepping for something more difficult than words usually asked of him. "I've got something to ask," he said. I looked up. "Go for it." "It's my mom's birthday today." I waited, unsure what that had to do with me. "She's got a dinner planned. Big thing. Family, neighbors, people I haven't seen since last Thanksgiving. It's one of those nights." "Okay," I said carefully. He set his mug down, and I was wondering if you'd come with me. I blinked. "What, like, as your plus one?" "Sort of. Not officially. He exhaled. "You be doing me a favor." He didn't meet my eyes right away, but his tone was steady. "You don't have to pretend anything," he added. "Just be there. Sit beside me. Maybe stop them from asking questions I'm tired of dodging." I didn't answer right away. Not because I was unsure, but because I hadn't expected him to ask. Wade didn't seem like the type to invite people into that part of his life. "You sure?" I asked. He nodded once. It'd mean something, so I said yes. He offered me a clean shirt that would blend in better than what I had. I changed, folded my old one, and left it neatly on the dresser. He didn't say much while we got ready, but he didn't need to. There was tension in the air, not from between us, but around us. Like we were both waiting for a shift that might or might not happen. The drive to town was quiet. He fiddled with the radio, then turned it off. Neither of us spoke until we reached the long gravel driveway lined with parked cars. "You don't have to do anything special," he said as we pulled up. "Just sit beside me. That's all. I got you." He parked beside a white pickup that looked like it had seen 3 generations. The house ahead buzzed with voices and movement. A folding table in the yard was already sagging under bowls and casserole dishes. I could hear laughter before we even got out. Inside, it was controlled chaos. People moving through hallways, calling out names, passing dishes, greeting each other with half hugs and cheek kisses. Wade was pulled into an embrace by a woman not much taller than his shoulder. "There's my boy," she said. She turned to me, her smile wide and expectant. "And who's this?" "This is Eli," Wade said, voice even. She didn't hesitate, just pulled me in for a hug and said, "About time he brought someone." There was no sarcasm in her tone, just warmth, like I was already welcome. We moved through the house slowly. Wade introduced me as a friend, but no one raised an eyebrow. No one pried. They smiled. They nodded. They asked how long I was visiting. No one made it weird. We sat together at the big table, surrounded by noise and motion. He filled both our plates, passed me a napkin without a word, and made sure I had what I needed before taking a bite himself. The conversation swirled around us. Someone's son had made the football team. Someone's cousin was pregnant again. Someone else had lost a job, but picked up 2 side gigs. Wade offered comments when needed. I followed his lead. At one point, an older man leaned across the table and asked, "You two meet through work?" "No," Wade said simply. He had car trouble. The man chuckled. "Always said this town was good for chance encounters." That was it. No one dug deeper. After dinner, someone turned on music from a Bluetooth speaker. Old country tunes, mostly. People started dancing in the living room, chairs shoved back against the wall. Kids darted between legs. Someone passed around a tray of cookies shaped like stars. Wade and I stood near the wall, watching the movement. He took a sip from a plastic cup and said, "This goes on for hours. You ever dance?" He smirked. "Used to. Then why not now?" He looked out at the floor. "Not sure the room's ready." I nudged him. "I'll dance with you." His eyes met mine. "You don't have to." "I know." He paused, like he was weighing something bigger than the question. Then he set his cup down and said, "All right." We stepped onto the edge of the makeshift dance space. He didn't take my hand, not at first. Just placed one lightly at my back. I rested mine on his shoulder. We swayed, slow and unsure at first, but then we found rhythm. Not perfect, not choreographed, just honest. The room didn't go quiet. No one stopped to stare. A few people glanced. That was all. And I realized something. They'd probably known long before Wade ever said it out loud. Maybe they were just waiting for him to stop hiding. When the song ended, we stepped apart naturally. He looked calm, not relieved, just steady. Later, on the porch, we sat with paper plates full of dessert we barely touched. "Thanks for coming," he said. "I'm glad I did." "They didn't make it weird, did they?" "No," I said. "They just seemed happy for you." He nodded. "Most of them are." A beat passed. "I didn't ask you here to prove something," he said. "I just didn't want to sit alone again." I looked at him. "You don't have to explain." But he did anyway. "It gets old. Pretending the silence doesn't get to you." I know. That night, after we returned to the ranch, he didn't offer small talk. Just sat beside me on the porch until the stars came out again. I didn't push for meaning. Neither of us needed to explain the way the day had shifted something between us. We didn't name it, but it was there, and it was enough. The porch was quiet when we got back. No music, no movement, just the chirp of crickets and the faint rustle of grass in the dark. Wade grabbed 2 mugs from the kitchen and filled them with something that smelled like mint and heat. It wasn't coffee this time. Whatever it was, it cleared the back of my throat in one sip. He sat beside me, one foot resting on the rail. We didn't speak for a long time. I didn't mind. The silence wasn't about discomfort. It was more like catching your breath. After a while, he said, "You ever tell someone the truth and regret it?" The question didn't come with drama, just a quiet tone, like he was thinking it aloud. "Yeah," I answered. "More than once." Wade nodded. "Same." The stars were out again. Big, cold, clear. Nothing between us and the sky. The kind of view that demanded stillness. "I told someone once," he said, eyes focused ahead. "Didn't even plan to. Just happened." I stayed quiet. He didn't need encouragement to keep going, just space. He worked on a nearby ranch. Part-time, couple seasons. Smart guy, real sharp with engines. We didn't talk much at first, just nodded when we passed each other. Eventually, I'd find him sitting on the tailgate after work, fixing something or doing nothing at all. We'd talk about dust storms, About dogs. Nothing that mattered, but it felt like it did. His voice didn't change. Steady, matter of fact. I didn't say anything for months. Neither did he. But we knew. You just know. You know when someone sees you. He paused. One evening, his brother stopped by, saw us sitting close. Not touching, just talking. But it was enough. The next morning, Carter didn't show up. Didn't come the next day either. Quit without a word. No number. No note. Gone. I didn't say anything. The silence felt respectful. I thought I'd done something wrong. Or maybe I should have kept quiet. Spent a few weeks trying to act like it hadn't meant anything. But it had. And I haven't let anyone close since. Not really. He looked over at me. Not searching for sympathy, just checking that I was still there. I'm sorry, I said. Wade nodded like he'd already filed the apology away years ago, but appreciated hearing it now. I took a slow breath. My last relationship wasn't honest. At least not for me. Why not? He was fine. Funny. Outgoing. Everyone liked him. I wanted to be liked too, so I smiled a lot. I said yes when I wanted to say no. I laughed when I wanted to ask questions. I shrank to fit what he needed. I stared at the grain of the wood under my feet. He never raised his voice. Never hit me. But I stopped recognizing my own reflection. He liked to be seen. I was just part of the background. After a while, I got tired of apologizing for existing. Wade didn't respond right away, but I could feel him listening. You leave, or did he? I said something that felt like a boundary. He made it clear it was too much. We sat with that. People always say, you deserve better, I added. But they don't tell you what to do with the guilt of walking away. Wade let out a breath. They also don't tell you how hard it is to believe it. I looked at him. You believe it now? I'm working on it. I nodded. Same. The night deepened. The wind shifted. A low whistle moved through the trees, but neither of us moved. Wade spoke again. It's strange how one moment changes everything. You break down on a road you didn't plan to be on, and next thing you know, you're having conversations you hadn't had in years. I didn't plan to be here, I admitted. He smiled faintly. No one ever does. But sometimes you end up where you need to be. The quiet after that wasn't heavy. It settled between us gently. You know, he said, I don't usually let people stay more than a night. I believe you. Not because I don't want them here, but because it's easier to keep moving than to let someone slow you down. I understood that. But you didn't feel like a stranger, he added. Not after the second cup of coffee, anyway. I laughed softly. Guess I passed the test. We sat in silence again. The sky stretched wide above us, infinite but not intimidating. Just there. He sipped from his mug. You ever wonder if people come into your life just to remind you who you used to be? All the time. That's what this feels like. Like I forgot how it feels to speak without checking every word first. Yeah, I said. I've been doing that too long. I noticed, he said. I raised an eyebrow. That obvious? Not to most, he said. But I've had practice recognizing people who are carrying more than they let on. We didn't get dramatic. We didn't hug or say things that belong to movies. But in that stillness, something shifted. Not because we named it, but because we didn't need to. It was enough to just be there. Later, when we got up to head inside, Wade paused at the door. I won't ask you to stay. I know, but I wouldn't mind if you did. I know that too. We went inside without another word, and the door shut behind us like punctuation. Not an ending, but a pause. I woke up before the sun, not from noise or light, but from something quieter, a kind of awareness that today was different. The air in the guest room felt still, the kind that follows a decision even before it's been made. I got up slowly, folded the blanket, packed my things without rushing. Everything I brought fit back into the bag easily. Too easily. As if nothing had changed. But something had. Outside the window, the first signs of morning touched the field beyond the porch. Pale colors creeping into the sky. Uncertain, but present. I stood there longer than I meant to, watching the light grow. My tire had arrived. The car was ready. There was no reason to stay, at least none I could explain with words. When I stepped into the hallway, I expected silence. Instead, I smelled bacon. Again, and heard the soft scrape of a spatula against cast iron. Wade, he didn't look surprised to see me, just nodded toward the table and said, Eat before you go. I dropped the bag by the door and sat. He placed a plate in front of me like he had every morning since I'd arrived, without comment, without formality. I picked up the fork and took a bite. It was good. It had been good every day. We ate mostly in silence. But this time it wasn't relaxed. It was watchful. I appreciate everything, I said, finally breaking the tension. He didn't look up. You don't owe me anything. I know. That's what makes it harder. He finished his coffee. You heading out right away? That was the plan. He nodded. I figured. There was no bitterness in his tone. No pressure either. But something hung in the space between us, like a question no one had quite found the words to ask. I'll walk you out, he said. We stepped outside into the chill of early morning. The air was clean, real, the kind of air that wakes you all the way up. My car sat in the driveway, good as new. The tire replaced, the engine fine. I opened the trunk and tossed the bag inside. Closed it. Then I just stood there. Wade didn't move. So I said. So he echoed. I looked at him. Really looked. This week, it was unexpected. Same here. You made space for me when I didn't even know I needed it. He met my eyes. You filled it in ways I didn't expect. That sentence lingered. I meant to keep driving west, I said. I told myself I needed distance, that I wouldn't stop until I felt something again. Anything. And now I'm not sure what I feel, but I know it's real. Wade took a step closer, not to make a move, not to make a point, just to shorten the space. You think you'll keep going? He asked. I thought I would. I looked back at the road. It stretched straight and clean, nothing blocking the way. But for once, it didn't pull me. I looked back at the house, at Wade. Still, steady, quiet in the best way. I'm not sure anymore, I said. He didn't smile, didn't nod, just stood there like he'd already accepted either answer. So I added, maybe I don't need to keep running. Wade let out a breath. You can stay, you know. Not forever, not under any pressure. Just stay for now. And do what? Whatever comes next. There was no promise in his voice. No romance. Just the offer of presence. I turned to the car, opened the driver's side door, then closed it again. I said, that I'm tired of going places just to avoid standing still. Wade nodded. Then don't go. The quiet after that wasn't awkward. It was full, not with tension, but with relief. I don't need answers yet, I said. Good, Wade replied. I wouldn't believe them anyway. He gestured back toward the house. I was going to fix the porch railing today. Could use a second pair of hands. I smiled. You're putting me to work already? Only if you stay. I turned back toward the house. I'll help, I said, but I'm not staying because I owe you. I know. I'm staying because, for once, it feels like the right place to be. Then that's enough. We walked back toward the porch. Not side by side. Not touching. Just in step. And, as I reached the top stair, I looked out over the field again. The sun had risen completely now. The grass shone gold. The sky held no promises, no instructions. Just openness. Sometimes, you don't choose to stay because it's easy. You choose to stay because something inside you finally stops pulling away. I had thought I was lost when I broke down on that road. But maybe I'd just been waiting for a reason to stop. And now I had one.